Algebra 1, dividing polynomials by monomials. Let's continue looking at operations with polynomials. In this concept, we're going to talk about dividing a polynomial just by a single term monomial. Here are the steps that you can follow to do this. First of all, split the problem into pieces by placing each term in the numerator over the denominator. And then step number 2, simplify each term separately. Use the properties of exponents to simplify the variables in each term and reduce the fractions. So looking at the first example, you have the polynomial 6x to the fourth minus 8x cubed plus 12x minus 4, all divided by the single term monomial 2x squared. So just start with step 1 and take each term in the numerator. So we'll start with our 6x to the fourth and then divide it by 2x squared. Then just continue with each term in the numerator. This is a division problem, and so you can have the entire polynomial divided by a single term, or you can break it down into each of the terms in the polynomial divided by the monomial in the denominator. Then just simplify each term separately. So 6 divided by 2 is 3. Remember your exponent rules. When you're dividing same bases, you can subtract your exponents. Negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4. You're dividing your variables, so you can subtract the exponents. 12 divided by 2 is 6. Notice you have x to the first power divided by x squared. So the bigger exponent minus the smaller, 2 minus 1 is 1. But since the bigger term is in the denominator, that's where our variable term will end. And then finally we've got negative 4 divided by negative 2, which is 2, and then x squared in our denominator. In example 2, we have a trinomial divided by a monomial. So pause the video, take each of the numerator terms and place it over the denominator term, including the negative 6 each time. Now here's my step 1. You can see that I have included the negative 6 in each of those denominator terms. So now I'll just start by dividing. 24 divided by negative 6 is negative 4. We're dividing our variables, so subtract your exponents. 4 minus 2 is 2. Now we have a negative divided by a negative, which will become a positive. And we'll just reduce that fraction, divide top and bottom by 2, and you'll be left with 8/3. And then anything divided by itself is simply 1. So we will not have a variable term. And then we have another negative divided by a negative, so that term will also become positive. 12 divided by 6 is 2. And then notice we've got z to the first over z squared, but take your bigger exponent, subtract your smaller. 2 minus 1 is 1. Since the bigger exponent term was in the denominator, that's where our final variable term will end up. Look at example 3. Now see, we have two different variables, but the idea is still the same. So pause the video, take each of your numerator terms and place it over the denominator term. So now we're going to simplify each term. 18 divided by 3 is 6xy. Nothing will be on our denominator except for a 1, and we don't need to place that under as a denominator because it's not going to change the value of our 6xy. 22 divided by 3, so we'll just leave that as 22x cubed y thirds. 15 divided by 3, and it's a negative, so that'll be a negative 5, and then we just carry down our variables. So 5x y squared. Now each time I'm scanning to see if I have any terms that I can combine, because if I do have variable terms that are the same, exactly the same, then I can combine. Here I have one that are very close, x to the first, y to the first. It's very close to this one, but they're not quite the same, and so I can't combine. Now in example 4, step 1, go ahead and place each of your numerator terms over your denominator. Pause the video. You can see I've already done this. Okay, you're back. So now let's divide these out. 12 divided by 2 is 6. X to the third divided by x to the first is x squared. 6 divided by 2 is 3. Subtract your exponents. 2 minus 1 is 1. And since the 2 is in the numerator, that's where our variable term will end up. And then lastly, 2x divided by 2x, anything divided by itself will be 1. 1 divided by 1 is simply 1. Now look at the independent practice section. Pause the video. Go ahead and go through the steps for dividing on each of these, and then come back and check your work. Number 1 in the independent practice, you'll divide each of the terms in your numerator by 4m, and you'll end up with m to the fourth plus 3m to the third minus 6m squared. And then on number 2, you'll divide each of those terms in the numerator by 2r squared s, and you'll end up with 2r squared s squared plus 3r s plus 2.